We're so excited to be able to come out and give you some information about what's available to the businesses in Calaveras County. And before I begin, I want to introduce Karen Rich, who's the program director with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, who also has some programs available. We want to make sure that we get as much information out to everybody as we can. So Karen, if you want to come up and just give a few minutes about what USDA has available for businesses.
Hi, everybody in line. Hi, everybody who's eating. The food is delicious, and my name is Karen, so you can thank me all for this great meal I heard I cooked. No, but I think there's another Karen who prepared this food.
It's Terry. Terry Richards.
Oh, Terry. Oh, thank you so much, Terry. Everything was delicious. I would say give a big round of applause to Terry. So, I want to thank all of you for coming out on this beautiful rainy day to find out how you can support your businesses in Calaveras County. I'm with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and we're with an agency called Rural Development. And I'm looking out this window here, and this definitely is rural. And this is where we like to be. We like to be where it's rural. We don't like to be in San Francisco. We don't like to be in LA. We like to be driving down the roads behind a tractor rather than a taxi. So why is USDA here today? The reason we're here is we're not going to teach you how to grow anything. Our agency is not about production agriculture. We leave that to our sister agency, Farm Service Agency, Natural Resource Conservation Service, Risk Management Agency. We have a lot of agencies at USDA, but we're a very special agency because we take care of everything in your community that doesn't have to do with ag production. So when you're driving down your little town and you notice there's a fire department, if you notice there's a hotel, if you notice there's a restaurant, if you drink healthy, clean water, as you flush the toilet, as you walk into your house, as you go into your apartment, that's all what rural development is about. We're a part of your community. We're helping assist with the manufacturing of your food products. So we take part of the community that is in rural America that's not related to forestry and agriculture. So again, we focus on 3 mission areas. We have rural housing, which is single-family housing and multifamily housing. We have community programs, that's community facilities. Thank you. We build lots of fire stations and hospitals and community centers. We also provide water, wells, and wastewater treatment centers or plants. In my area is business, cooperative, and energy programs. And I just want to point out Krista Minges, who came with me from Davis this morning, and she's helping to staff our booth, and we have a lot of handouts on all our programs, so I won't go into the details of any of those programs. So what programs do we have to offer? Well, like our sister agency, SBA, we support businesses but we specifically support businesses in rural areas. We have to be in an area where there's a population of 50,000 or less. Our goal is to create and save jobs in rural areas to improve the economic and environmental economies. Our biggest program is the Business and Industry Guaranteed Loan Program. And the key word is it's a guaranteed loan program where we work with the banks to guarantee a loan that you would take out from your bank. We work with commercial and non-traditional lenders. And we provide, our purpose of our loans are real estate, buildings, leasehold improvements, equipment, inventory, working capital, loan fees and costs, professional services, feasibility study costs. We can't guarantee lines of credit. Our terms, we have working capital, are 7 years maximum, equipment 15 years, and real estate is 30 years, which is longer than SBA. And then if you're doing all three, then we do what's called a blended rate. We have no minimum size loan, and we can go up to $25 million. In the state of California, I have loan approval authority of up to $10 million. So if it's anything $10 million and below, we can have the approval authority here. And if it's above $10 million, it has to go to the national office. That's in Washington, D.C. Our customer is the bank. They make the loan, and we guarantee the loan. We also have other programs. As you're rebuilding in your county, you're probably going to be replacing a lot of energy equipment that uses energy. So if you have refrigeration units, lighting, and you're replacing those with energy efficiency, or you're putting solar on a building, and you're a small business in a rural area, we can provide up to 20% of the costs in a grant. It's called our REAP, R-E-A-P program, Rural Energy for America program. And that program also has a loan guarantee portion of it. So between the loan guarantee and the grant, we could finance up to 100% of your energy projects. We can also do a combination of a B&I guaranteed loan for, let's say you had a hotel. We could then cover the energy efficiency or the energy improvement portions with the REAP guaranteed loan, and then the rest of the project would be with our B&I guaranteed loan. And there's a lot of money available right now for both of those programs. We also make loans and grants to partners, such as our economic development corporations, counties, and alternative lenders. And we make the loan to the what we call the intermediary, and then they make the loan to the intermediate, to the ultimate recipient. We have 2 programs for that. And then the other area, everybody likes grants, and I know there's a lot of agriculture and grapes here in Calaveras County, where we provide the financing with a grant for half the cost of a value-added producer product. So we can't fund the production of your grapes, but we can cover half the costs of making the wine. And then if you wanted to market your wine, we would help with half the costs of that. And we also have a planning grant where we would cover the half the cost of doing a feasibility study and planning grant for a value-added producer project. So we provide support not just to businesses, but to cities, counties, nonprofits, and Native American tribes. For businesses, we support the organizations that support you. We have a grant program that can help provide education and technical assistance to businesses in your region that would help with the recovery efforts. This grant is the Rural Business Development Grant. So I think that's my 5 minutes. And if you'd like to contact me, I have my cards over at the table, and if you have a pen handy, I'll give you my phone number. It's 530-792-5825. And I know this is being recorded, so I'll say it again. 530-792-5825. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and enjoy your lunch.
Okay, here we go. We're going to change mics. Thanks a lot, Karen.
Thank you, Joe.
You know, when I first got the call from Maurice a few months ago about doing the expo, I said, well, what do you want to hear about? What do you want me to talk about? And he said, Joe, the issue is we've got all these fantastic small businesses, but they really don't know about what resources are out there. that are available to help them. And I said, you know, that's exactly what we run into at the SBA, the USDA, the Economic Development Administration. I know Melinda Matson's here somewhere from EDA. There she is. And I said, we need to have as many of those folks here at your expo as possible to talk to not only your county officials, but also you know, your small businesses and your other you know, special districts, your hospitals, so that we can get that information out to you. And what Karen just talked about is some of the ways that USDA supports business growth in rural communities. And so I said, you know, I'd be happy to come up and do the keynote for the lunch, but I'd really like to get as much information out there as possible. So as Karen mentioned, there's a lot of information available at her booth, and there's really a lot of different ways that USDA can support your community, whether it's, you know, small business loans like we do, and I'll talk a little bit about the differences there, but also community infrastructure, water projects, fire stations, a lot of the things that, you know, we're dealing with, struggling right now in Calaveras as well because of the destruction of the fire, right? So when you talk about federal resources, who is the SBA? We're the smallest federal agency out there that actually has a direct link to the White House. Our administrator sits on the cabinet, Maria Contreras-Sweet, and so a lot of times we get initiatives directly from the White House in terms of reaching out to small businesses. For example, the recent one is the Affordable Care Act, where we were tasked with going out and meeting with businesses to help explain away some of the myths about the Affordable Care Act and how some of the you know, the programs through the Affordable Care Act can help small businesses provide those resources to their employees health benefit-wise, right? And so we did a lot of those outreach programs when the Affordable Care Act first came out. But that's really not the nuts and bolts of who the SBA is, and I'll talk a little bit about what that is. The SBA helps Americans start, build, and grow businesses. We have an extensive network of field offices and then partnerships. Since we are a very small agency, the majority of our work is really done through our partnerships with nonprofits and economic development agencies, and then our partnerships with our federal partners like EDA and USDA. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But we have 6 district offices in California, from San Diego, Santa Ana, LA, and then the closest to you here in Calaveras County is Fresno and the Sacramento district office, and then we also have one in San Francisco. And the majority of our programs are really run out of DC and our processing centers, but the district offices are what we consider our marketing arms. And so we have 63 of those across the nation, of which 6 are here in California. And we're actually out providing the information to small businesses, economic development agencies, cities, counties, state agencies, to get the information out about how those programs can interact with your community and how they can support your growth. The Sacramento district actually is the 22 northeastern counties of California, so they go from basically San Joaquin and Calaveras up to Siskiyou and Modoc. So we have a pretty large district that the Sacramento district office. We're actually headquartered in Citrus Heights, which is just a little bit north of Sacramento. We have 11 folks in our office, which Carrie Ellenwood is here, and she'll talk a little bit during her presentation about some of the loan programs. But when you think about the SBA and how they can support you, there's really 3 C's and a D. When you think about small businesses, the first thing that comes to mind is capital, right? Karen talked a little bit about what USDA does in the capital realm. In terms of the SBA, we have basically 7A loans, which are guaranteed loans that you get from either a bank, a credit union, or another non-bank lender. We also have economic development loans, which are called 504 loans, and those are designed to help businesses gain access to a larger pool of money for fixed assets, whether it's machinery and equipment, land and building, or constructing a new building. We also have microloans, loans under $50,000 for businesses, and that's similar to USDA in terms of we provide money to an intermediary. I'll talk a little bit about that. We also have a couple of little known programs that I always want to make sure people understand. Small business investment companies. Those are privately managed investment groups that do equity investments in businesses to help them grow, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then we also have our small business innovative research and small business tech transfer programs, which we keep an eye on to help businesses gain access to a lot of that technology that's happening in our federal labs. And so we can get that technology out into the private sector, commercialize it, and create businesses that way. The second C is contracting. I don't know if anybody in this room knows, but the SBA, we're really the watchdog when it comes to federal contracting dollars. So what we do is we work with all of the contracting officers in all the federal agencies, whether it's Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Department of Defense, VA, you name it. We work with the contracting officers in those agencies to help make sure that those contracting dollars are set aside specifically for small businesses and then also for socioeconomic programs for women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, to help them gain access to some of that federal contracting opportunity. You'd be surprised at the number of businesses that are right here in your community who do federal contracting, and they do very well. Whether it's road work, whether it's clearing trees, whether it's shooting pine cones out of the trees for folks like USDA and other agencies. There's opportunities out there, and we really want to make sure businesses understand that that's a niche that you might want to take advantage of. The third C is counseling. And we all know businesses need capital. We all know they need to find new markets. But really the biggest issue that we're finding with small businesses, and we're actually talking about it this morning, was just understanding how to run a business, how to start a business. What's working capital? What's a balance sheet? What does a projection mean? What's that banker going to look at when they look at my request for financing? What's my management expertise? And so in my field office, we actually have economic development specialists. We got a couple of folks here, Kathy Chapman, Robin Yasso in the back, who are economic development specialists and can sit down with you one-on-one. But we also have an additional network of small business development centers, which we'll talk a little bit. Nate McBride. There's Nate. He's with your Small Business Development Center here in Calaveras County. We have women's business centers, which are directed technical assistance specifically for women-owned businesses. We have what's called the Service Corps of Retired Executives, which they don't call themselves that anymore, but that's how I know them. And that's SCORE, and that's men and women who've been in business, who've been in the trenches, and they're giving back now. And so they provide one-on-one mentorships. They provide classes for folks. We also have specific outreach centers for veterans. One of the biggest untapped markets for small businesses in your community are those veterans who are coming back and serving our country. And all the discipline and all of the, what they learn in the armed services translates very well to owning a business and understanding how to get things done under pressure and understand how to run an operation and direct folks. And then we also have what's called procurement technical assistance centers. And you don't have to memorize this, just come over to our booth and we can talk about it. But when you're doing business with the federal government, there's a whole nother ball game of forms and understanding how to do business with the federal government, how to get in with that contracting officer. And we have what's called procurement technical assistance centers who can walk you through that process of getting on the GSA schedule, understanding how the federal government buys. It's nothing more than understanding how to do business with HP or General Motors, right? We're a huge corporation, and there's ways of dealing with those contracting folks. And the last letter that you want to think about when you're thinking about SBA is disaster assistance. We've got Yolanda Stokes in the back here, who's with our Office of Disaster Assistance. Currently, Calaveras County is under two disasters, right? You have the fire and you also have the drought. And this is the only way that small businesses, homeowners, large businesses, renters can take advantage of the SBA is directly. We make direct loans to those folks who have been affected by disasters. The first thing you think about after a disaster is, oh my God, where's my kids? Where's my spouse? Where's my animals? Is my house okay? Am I going to be able to feed myself tomorrow? The next thing is, oh my God, what's going to happen to my business? How do I recover from this? How do I take it to the next level? How do I reassess my market? Because maybe my customers have, maybe they've gone away, maybe they've changed. And that's where the SBA can help you with some direct financing as well as some assistance through Nate and our Small Business Development Center. So when you think about the SBA, you want to think about 3 C's: capital, contracting, and counseling, and then disaster. So on the capital side, we can loan up to $5 million, 85% guarantee for loans up to $150,000, and then a 75% guarantee for loans greater than $150,000. So basically up to $3.75 million in a guarantee. And who is that lender? It's going to be your local bank. It's going to be your credit union. It's going to be a non-bank lender. It's not going to be the SBA. We work directly, like USDA, with that lender. These are all term loans, expansion, renovation, new construction, purchase land and building, equipment, anything that's a business related. We can also refinance debt if there's some compelling reason where we can help your cash flow. If you have some debt out there that's got a high interest rate and we can reduce that. We have seasonal lines of credit, inventory, or starting a business. Our loans are available for starting a business. And this fiscal year, which is an add-on from last fiscal year, our administrator went to Congress and said, look, we don't want to charge any fees for loans under $150,000 because that's where we think we need to make an impact. And so for this fiscal year, there's no SBA fees on loans under $150,000. The 504 loans, these are our economic development loans. These are actually provided through what we call certified development companies. I know it's not the Center for Disease Control like our hospital friends think. It's what we call certified development companies. Those are nonprofits licensed by the SBA to assist small businesses in job growth and job creation. Real estate or large equipment financing up to 90%. Typically on real estate, you need 20, 30% down. We can do those for 90%. And the project is a combination of unguaranteed debt from your bank. So the bank takes, like on your home, a first trust deed mortgage on that real estate or piece of equipment for 50% of that purchase. The CDC, through what we call a debenture, they actually sell these in Washington, and they create a 40% second trust deed, which is a fixed rate for 20 years, and then you as a small business owner put 10% down. So it's a great way for you to get involved in expanding your business, purchasing large equipment, or purchasing a building, or constructing a new building for your business. And the catch is that for every certain amount of dollars, what is it, $65,000 that we lend through the CDC, we want to see you as the business either create or retain a job. And so it's really based on job creation and retention, and that's why it's there. The 40% maximum on the CDC side is $5 million, and that non-guaranteed portion comes from the lender is 50%. So really the bank can come in, and they're in a great position. They'll be in first position, 50% loan to value. So you should get a pretty decent rate out of that bank. And typically it's a bank you're already doing business with. And then the CDC does that second trust deed, 40% fixed rate for 20 years. I think it's at 4.7 right now, which is a great deal if you want to really fix those costs going forward. And then you only have to come up with 10% down so you can hang on to your cash for working capital, which is the biggest issue that a lot of businesses have. You don't have to sink it in real estate or sink it into a machinery and equipment. Our microloan program assists women, low-income, veteran, minority entrepreneurs, and other businesses in need of financing of $50,000 or less. And these are loans that are made through what we call our intermediaries. So what we do is similar to USDA, we provide loans and grants to intermediaries who deliver not only the loan but technical assistance along with that loan. So they're going to work with you prior to getting the loan, and then they're going to work with you after you get the loan to make sure you're using those proceeds appropriately and you're being successful. It's short term. It's usually not more than 6 years. It's fixed rate, and it could be a line of credit, and the repayment is really determined by the intermediary and what your use of proceeds are. Unlike some of our 7A loan programs, we can use this for nonprofit businesses like daycare businesses that on the 7A program, our general programs, those are all you have to be a for-profit business to be eligible. Our small business investment company, again, this is where not debt, but this is where equity comes into play. Last year we had $4 billion authorized, and over $20 billion of assets are under management throughout the country. We have over 285 small business investment companies across the nation. Again, they're privately owned, but they're licensed and regulated by SBA. For example, you get a couple of investors together, they come up with $3 or $4 million, they want to expand on that, we can give them or loan them from the SBA up to $6 million. Suddenly you have a $10 million investment pool that's managed by those private investors. One of the local, and it doesn't have to be here in Calaveras County. That SBC can be anywhere. If you go on our website and we can help you find that, find an SBIC that really focuses in on your industry, and we can put you in touch with them. A local one is what's called Central Valley Fund. They're a small business investment company in Davis, California. They do most of their investments in the Central Valley, as their name indicates, but they're really there for the business who wants to take it to the next level, maybe go from 4 or 5 million in top line sales to 10 million. They're probably not ready for debt at that point, so they're looking for some equity, and what comes along with that equity is management expertise. There's a company in Sacramento that took advantage of this program, and they were a mom and pop business. They were having board meetings as they're walking down the hallway, and they wanted $5 million to expand. Central Valley Fund went in and said, we'll put $5 million in, but we're also going to get a seat on the board. We're not having board meetings as we walk down the street. We're going to sit down. We're going to actually have minutes. We're going to have board meetings. We're going to have a strategic plan, and we're going to have a succession plan for your business. They went from $5 million to $15 million in 3 years top line because they had the management expertise, but also the capital that was provided through that small business investment company. How many folks in here do business with the federal, state, or local government? Okay, so a few of you. How fun is that? It's great. Who else? Your bookkeeper takes care of it. Okay, yes, sir. How's that work for you?
It's worked out pretty well.
Has it? Okay. A lot of businesses don't understand the opportunity. And in the SBA, we work with those contracting officers on a regular basis, and a lot of people don't know this, but we can stop a solicitation from going out from a federal agency if we believe there's a small business who can take that contract and perform on it. So a lot of times we'll be talking to the contracting officer with BLM or somebody, and they'll say, oh, we've got this $10 million contract that's going to go out. Wait, we want you to set aside for small business only. And that's an opportunity. If you're in business, you're successful in the private sector side of your business, but you're looking for a new niche, the federal government might be an opportunity. It's not for startups. It's not for, I just put my name on a list and they send me a contract. I don't know what your experience is, but they don't just drop off the truck and say, here's a contract for you, right? I mean, you actually have to market yourself to them, and we can help you do that. But you need to put together what's called a capability statement, find out who that buyer is or that contracting officer is with that federal agency. We can help you navigate that. And then you need to market yourself like you do in the private sector, because their job's on the line. If they give you a contract and you don't perform, they might be out of a job, right? 23% of prime contract are designated for small businesses in the federal arena. And I don't know that a lot of people know this, but they're gold on this every year. Small disadvantaged businesses, which are typically minority-owned firms, they have a goal of 5%. Women-owned businesses, there's now a goal for the federal agencies to have 5% of their contracts go to women-owned businesses. Hub-zoned businesses, which are businesses in what's called historically underutilized business zones, or businesses or zones that have high unemployment, or they have low wages in that community. Those are hub zones, and we can tell you what hub zones are available to you. And then service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses. All the contracting agencies have set-asides for that. Primary industries in the Sacramento area: construction, environmental, staffing, believe it or not, forestry. There's a lot of contracts going out for businesses in these industries. And the primary federal agencies: Corps of Engineers, Bureau of Rec, Forest Service, Federal Highways, Park Service, Department of Justice with their prisons, and then DOD and their bases. A lot of that work is done by private contractors that you see on the bases and you see at some of these federal installations. So if that's an industry that might interest you, you might want to come and talk to us. So that's the 3 C's, right? You have capital, you have contracting, and then counseling, which we'll talk about, but then disaster assistance. Business loans. Any business, any size business is eligible, including nonprofits and charities. And Yolanda, you can call me out if I miss something here, right? Loan amount up to $2 million. Repair or replace real estate, inventory, machinery, equipment, any other physical loss. Now, when it comes to the fire, we know you had physical loss, but we also have a drought in this state. And we have what's called economic injury disaster loans. And I'll give you a real quick example of what that is. If you have a business, for example, that works on trucks, and The crops aren't growing in Central California because of the drought, so the trucks aren't hauling the crops to the stores. So the trucks aren't breaking down as much as they were last year. If you can show top line that your revenue went from here to here, and you can show a connection to the fact that it's because of the drought that the trucks aren't breaking down, then you're eligible for an economic injury disaster loan directly from the SBA. Those loans are, the business loans are direct loans. They're 4% interest rate. You go online, you do the application. We've got a help desk that can help you, and we've seen businesses take advantage of that. We also provide disaster loans for homeowners and renters. What is it, up to $40,000 in personal property can be eligible for renters who have personal property, automobiles, furniture, things like that. Anything that has not been covered by insurance, then we can step in and provide a loan for that. Maurice, we talked about resources. You've got tremendous resources right here in the community, local resources. We talked about the Small Business Development Center with Nate McBride. He's at Delta College. He's in San Joaquin County, but he covers Alpine, Amador, Calaveras, as well as San Joaquin. And then who's your local? Trudy. There's Trudy in the back. She's your local SBDC consultant. She lives right here, right in Calaveras County. And so she's available to meet with you at your place of business, at your home, whatever it makes the most sense for you, or you can come into Stockton. That's one-on-one assistance that you've already paid for through your tax dollars. You're not paying it to Trudy, you're not paying it to Nate. What they do is they set up an appointment, we'll sit down with you one-on-one and talk about what your needs are, whether it's marketing, HR, financing, whatever needs you have, and they can be a consultant for you that's basically free of charge because you've already paid for it through your tax dollars. We have the Economic Development District with Larry Cope. Where's Larry? Larry in the back over there. Larry's with the Central Sierra Economic Development District, funded through the EDA, which is part of U.S. Department of Commerce, but they're right on the ground, right here in your community. And they can help the communities plan for economic growth. He can also do some one-on-one consulting as well. I know he's got an economic development background. He covers Alpine, Calaveras, Mariposa, and Tuolumne counties. Some other local resources. We have the Sacramento chapter for SCORE, which again, we can give you that information. For small business loans, for those microloans, we have what's called the CDC Small Business Finance. Al Thiel is a loan expert with that organization, and they can do those microloans for you in this community. We also have the Calaveras County Economic Development Company. Maurice is here. Thanks, Maurice, for being here. And they can help you from a local perspective. Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce. Where's Stacy? There's Stacy in the back. She's ex-small business owner, right? Raised, just about every kid in Calaveras County, right? But she's with the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce. Terry, where's Terry? There's Terry. There we go. Calaveras County Women's Network. I talked a little bit this morning with Terry. She really wants to make that a part of the business community. So there's a resource there for you locally. On the federal side, we've got Karen Rich, and you heard from her with the USDA under the rural development side, anything that's not ag producing but business related for your community. And that's why I asked her to come, because you look outside, right, and that's rural, right? You have Melinda Matson with the Economic Development Administration. She's the rep for Northern and Coastal California. And we're going to be talking a little bit this afternoon with some county supervisors about what we can do as a group between USDA, SBA, and EDA to help support your long-term growth and recovery from this disaster. And then you have the SBA. Right here in Sacramento, only, an hour and a half away, something like that. Depends on who's driving, right? But last year, we ended the year on a very high note. We did almost 1,000 loans in our district for a little over $384 million, and that's 7A and 504 loans combined. So for a district that is, from my perspective, fairly rural, I think that was a huge impact, and a lot of jobs and a lot of communities that were supported. And we'd like to see more loans and more resources brought to Calaveras County. So anything that we can do, we've got a table over in the event center there. Come by, talk to us, If you have an interest in one of the programs, we'd be happy to help you. So I guess, Maurice, questions from anybody, or I answered them all, or I put you to sleep? Yes, sir.
Your percentages on like disabled veterans.
Uh-huh.
I noticed it's 3%.
Yes.
5%. Is there any plan to raise that for disabled veterans to bring that quota up?
Not to my knowledge, no. And I think you'll probably see that come up with some changes in the cabinet, but I haven't heard anything lately. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the amount that you guarantee at different percentages. One of them is like 75%. Which 75% is it? Are you the first 75% or the last 75%?
Well, it's basically the first 75%, but that doesn't take you off the hook as the small business owner. And I'll give you an example, and Carrie can correct me if I'm wrong. So, and that's a good point. That's a good question.
My question is in regards to, do you get the loan from the bank and then SBA guaranteeing, are they guaranteeing the first 75% or are they guaranteeing the more risky last 25, the last 75%?
Carrie, why don't you?
Through the whole loan process. So if you had a $100,000 loan, SBA would guarantee $75,000 for the lender for that. Let's say you pay that loan down to $50,000, whatever, and you default.
Yes.
The SBA still guarantees 75% of that $50,000 for the lender. Okay, so it's kind of a rolling balance of what's left out there. There's a 75% guarantee. But what that happens for the borrower is if you default on that loan and we pay a lender $35,000, the Department of Treasury is going to come after you looking for that. And it also would make you ineligible for any other guaranteed federal loans or things like that. Does that answer?
It does answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand, and Karen, I don't know how it works with USDA, but from the SBA's perspective, what we're trying to do, because originally we made direct loans to businesses when we first got started in the mid-50s. And what made sense was banks were already out there doing business loans. They just weren't doing small business loans. And so what Congress said was, well, we want to incentivize the banks to get involved in more riskier loans, small business loans that we know have more risk to them, right? But we want to try to incentivize the banks to get into that marketplace. And so they said, well, what if we guarantee their losses? So it's not a guarantee for you as the business owner. It's a guarantee for the bank. And so like Carrie said, if you default on that loan, oh, well, it's guaranteed by the SBA. Well, the bank's okay. I mean, they're still out there 25%, and they're not happy with that. But guess what? The Treasury's then going to come knocking on your door and go, hey, look, we just took care of that guarantee for the bank. You are still responsible for the default. And I've actually had folks call my office, oh, my God, my Social Security check got cut in half. Really? How did that happen? Well, they said it has something to do with an SBA. Well, did you ever have an SBA loan? Well, yeah. You know, years ago I defaulted on an SBA loan, but it was guaranteed. Well, guess what? You know, it went to Treasury offset, and they've been waiting for you to start to get your, if you have a tax return refund, nope, that's going to go to pay off that. So, you still need to be prudent as a business person when you're taking out these loans. What we're trying to do is incentivize the bank to not go, oh, small business, forget it. Oh, small business? Okay, I'll tell you what we're calling it is a collateral enhancement. If you're a little short on collateral, if you're a startup, if you're maybe a risky industry, we'll use the SBA to guarantee our certain portion of our loan. But you're still on the hook for that, and you still need to make sure that you have a solid business plan and you have a backup plan if something goes wrong. That's where Nate and the SBDC come into play, is they can help you plan, help you put that together, that business plan that says, oh my gosh, 6 months into my business, I'm not going to have enough money for payroll. We don't want you there. We want to get you up front and figure out what you need, what your nut is, in order to be successful, and then take the next step and go to the bank for a loan. But you're still going to be on the hook for that. Good question. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am, in the back.
They don't have huge income. So a lot of the small
Absolutely. Most small businesses that I run into, and I think I can speak for my staff as well, and Nate, they're experts at their business. They're experts at catering, they're experts at plumbing, they're experts at IT. They're not experts at financing. They're not experts at talking to a bank and understanding the lingo and figuring out what does my balance sheet need to look like and how are they really looking at me, right? And that's where Nate and his staff come into play, because they can actually role play with you. And they can talk to you about what the bank is looking for. When you walk in, do you have the right documentation? Do you have a balance sheet? Do you have an income statement? Do you have a cash flow statement? Who's your customer base? Why would I want to buy from you? How are you different from your competition? What happens if half your competition suddenly grows by 20% next year? What's your plan of action? So that's what, use the SBDC as an ongoing, resource for that. And you're right. There's 100 people out there. 80 of them probably shouldn't get a loan. 10 of them could get a loan from anybody because they got more money than God. It's that 10 people right in the middle, right? That's where we come into play. That's where we can help the bank say, okay, I'm going to take that chance. Because realistically, not everybody's built to be in business for themselves. Sometimes people come in and say, oh, I hate my boss, I'm tired of this, I want to get into business. Really, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you think's good? I mean, how many times have you heard that, Nate? It's like, no, that's not the reason to go into business. You have to have a passion for it. You have to be a risk taker. You have to understand what you're doing. You have to be passionate about it. But you also need what I call your kitchen cabinet. You need support behind you. Before you walk into the bank to ask for a loan, you should know everything about that banker. You should know that banker's family. You should know that banker's kids. You should know what makes that bank tick if it's a small local bank, because different banks have different niches that they lend in, and it might not be anything personal. It might be, we've done 5 restaurants and you want to start a restaurant. Sorry, we're not going to lend to you. It's not because you have a bad plan, but we just made 5 restaurant loans and we don't want to make any more. So understand who they are, and then when you walk in for the loan, they go, oh, it's Julie. Hey, Julie, how are you? I know you've been working on this business plan. You've asked for my consultation, right? I know you've been working with the SBDC, that sort of a thing. If you're thinking about expanding your business, go in and talk to the SBDC. Talk to your accountant. Talk to an attorney in town. Hey, what does this look like? Get counsel, because you're not the expert in all this stuff. You're the expert in running your business, right? So it's just like anything else. Make sure you get a lot of counsel from folks who are experts in those areas. And then where we come in is we provide a little bit more collateral enhancement, if you will, to the banks so that they'll make the loan. Now, I will tell you this. A lot of banks will say, if you don't have collateral, we won't make the loan. That's a bank decision, and that's bank by bank. The SBA doesn't have any requirement for collateral. We're a cash flow lender. If you can show that you have cash flow to repay the loan, then you're eligible for an SBA loan. Now, the bank might say, oh, this won't work, SBA won't let you do this. Yeah, whatever. If the bank doesn't want to do it, they won't do it. And a lot of times they'll push it off on the SBA or USDA and say, oh, the feds won't let me do this. But different banks have different tolerances for risk. Does that help?
Yes, I think it does. And the other thing that came to mind when you were saying, I feel a lot of the businesses, in Calaveras, we have a good cash flow. We're good with our bookkeeping.
Okay.
And we're also efficient with our marketing. We've learned a lot about how to market within the community. And so I think we have a lot of things, and I feel that businesses in Calaveras have a very high standard of service. So they're almost always going to be an excellence, in my opinion. The places are going to be clean, the customer service is good, we have regular customers. We're a pretty high-level group, in my opinion, of business owners. However, I think the biggest thing would be the cash flow is good and the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. But as for people having, the large sums of money to get them out of renting their building and to expand, that's the part I think.
Well, and hopefully that's where the SBA and our micro lenders and some alternative lenders can help out.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then that's kind of our way, my way of just letting you know a little bit more about
Great.
us.
Appreciate it. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Just a little experience. Back in '98, we got a over $1 million loan from SBA, my first company in Silicon Valley, and it really made you look over your books, and they looked everything over. It allowed us to buy a large commercial building, allowed us to avoid being controlled by the rent, whatever the landlord felt like doing. We had to go and report to them, and it was like having a little miniature board that they kind of said, okay, these things have to be right. And sold the building 5 years later at $685,000 profit, so we were like,
Congratulations.
you enabled us to do that. If it wasn't for that, we would have just been paying rent.
So that was a 504 loan then, right? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So you must have created some jobs as a result of that, right? Great. Excellent. Thank you so much for that comment. Any other questions? No? Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
I really want to thank Joe for coming up. And Karen, everyone that came up from the city. See, it's much nicer to come from the city to here to visit than for us having to go down there to visit. Because we don't have traffic like you all do. We have a couple of stoplights we've learned to put up with, but that's about it. I think we're on a moratorium on stoplights. Okay, we're ready to break out and go to your various workshops. Remember, after the workshops, we're going to have a wrap-up session, which is going to be a great time also to ask questions. You have everybody up here so that you can ask whatever questions you have. Take advantage of the knowledge you have here today and the connections that we now have. And I also want to take a moment and thank Debbie Pawney, our supervisor, Calaveras County Supervisor, and Cliff Edmonds is also here, and Mike Oliver, I hope. Okay, is also here. Did I get everybody, or do we have someone else? I don't know all the faces. Help me out. Who else? Supervisors, please stand. It's too hard. There's Cliff. Okay. Well, you know what?
You have a quorum.
The business community is like pretty huge in Calaveras, and without business, we don't have Calaveras. And so I really appreciate the supervisors that took their time today. I don't know if any of the Angels Camp Business Council come. Did they make it? But any within these voted in spots, when they come and support their local businesses, should be thanked. Because I think it's rather important that they are here. All right, thank you folks. Take care. Go off to your various classes and enjoy the day.